Welcome back to Life at Octopus, the show where we sit down with the people behind Octopus Deploy to talk about the work, the mission, and the journey we're on together. Today's guest is someone who's helping shape the journey at a strategic level. Harsh Sabikhi is the Chief Revenue Officer, which means that he's at the intersection of where product meets market, and that's where value gets communicated and growth happens. Harsh has a sharp commercial lens to Octopus. He's been instrumental in aligning our go-to market strategy, building stronger customer connections, helping us think bigger, acting more globally about the impact we want to see. He's also a very thoughtful, candid, and sharp individual. He's sharp as how I love Harsh. And today we're going to sit down and talk to him about his leadership philosophy, his perspective on what it takes to scale responsibly, and what he's learned about building great teams and trust relationships along the way. And of course, we'll wrap things up with a few rapid fire questions to keep things interesting. Harsh, thanks for joining me. Let's dive in.
Thank you, John, for having me.
Yeah, awesome. So to begin, we'll start with your journey. And I was just wondering if you could take us back to the beginning. How did your career start and what led you to the world of revenue leadership?
Yeah, so by education, I'm actually an electrical engineer. I did engineering in school, specialization in software and computers. I've been fascinated with software development ever since the tender age of 12, when my dad bought me my first computer, IBM 386, and I was hooked on it. The first programming language I learned was Turing, and I never looked back. And for the first 6 years of my career, I actually was a developer, and I coded in Java, C, C++. And I realized shortly after I got into professional software engineering that my passion is software, but I actually enjoyed talking more about how software works and what the benefits are rather than actually developing it. And I had people skills, so I spoke to my leadership at that time where I was at Texas Instruments about transitioning me to a more customer facing role. And then it was at TI where I got the opportunity to do a lot more public speaking engagements. I spoke at my first conference out in Dallas in front of 150 people, and right away I knew that I wanted to get into a more of a customer facing role. At TI, then because being at that time they were a Fortune 80 company, there was a role of what's called a technical sales rep, which is like a sales boot camp. And for the first 6 months, then I went into that program. I actually took a step back from being a software engineer and reset my career and went through that in Dallas for about a year. And then what I realized is, technical sales is great, but selling hardware is not where my passion was at. It was actually more again in software. So I learned the basics of sales, and then I went over to a company called MKS, Mortise Current Systems, which got purchased by PTC. And that's where I was a sales engineer, then an account manager. Had a brief stint at a couple of startups, Pega and GoPago. Pega's a lot bigger now, but GoPago. And that's where I finally got into sales management and carrying a bag, if you will. From there on, I moved on to Rally Software, which was the pioneer of agile lifecycle management. It was really great. I actually started building an agile solution at PTC. So it transitioned. So you could say my career took that journey of waterfall to agile to DevOps and now DevSecOps. And then, Rally got bought by CA. Um, Nothing
Detecting a pattern
against
here.
CA.
This got
Yeah,
bought out by this, and yeah.
yeah. So, and then, it was great timing because GitHub called me. And as you can see, I actually joined in October 2015. GitHub was not who they are today. I mean, I think I was employee number 250 at
Oh
GitHub,
wow.
and the first Canadian employee. So first boots
Oh
on the ground in
cool.
Canada.
There you
Yeah,
go.
so started it from the ground up. It was a fantastic experience, probably one of the highlights of my careers. And from there, grew the team from myself to multiple people, and then after the Microsoft acquisition, then went to HashiCorp. Had a good run there, and then
Yep.
I was tired of the DevOps world and infrastructure world, and I had actually one of my VPs that I met at Rally, who is now the founder of Pendo, Todd Olson. So I went and joined him because he was ready to move up market. Similar to Octopus, Pendo was a PLG company. So they were building out a field force. So I was responsible for enterprise and then strategic accounts globally. And then that led me to Octopus, and that's where I got introduced to Paul Stovall. And actually, funny enough, in 2 weeks it's going to be my 3-year anniversary, and
Hey, there you go. Happy
it's
anniversary.
fantastic. Yeah, thank you.
That's awesome. Your journey has been quite remarkable. It's actually I think of that Indiana Jones motif where they travel to a new location. It's like start off in New York, then fly over to
Yeah,
London, then down to Cairo, then like you kind of bounced around there. And I would imagine that you've learned a lot of lessons along the
I
way. And I
yeah.
was wondering if there's one lesson that you learned early in your career that still influences you today.
Yeah, it's actually a simple one. Always be learning. Yeah, I've been in the technology space now for 25 years, and I can tell you it's changed so much. And in order to stay relevant, I always carve out time to learn about the latest and greatest. John, you can probably go on my calendar and you'll see I've got what's called Focus Fridays. So
Yes.
that's 3 to 5 p.m. on Fridays. For those 2 hours, I do a couple of things. I do a wrap up of what went well, what didn't go well this week, prepare for next week, but then also what are some of the learnings that I can take from there. And right now, I'm one of the executive sponsors for our AI initiatives, and I'm learning a lot more about MCP, Model Context Protocol, as well as the N8N workflows. So for our AI strategy.
Very nice, very nice. And so, that's serving you very well, obviously, as you move forward. Let's talk a little bit about vision, and let's think about the long-term vision we have for the company. So, when we look beyond, say, just the next 18 months, and we focus on, say, something like 2030, what excites you? I know we talk a lot about this vision at Octopus, this 2030 vision. What excites
Yeah.
you the most about that?
I think it's our focus on going deep and wide into the continuous delivery space. It's not a solved problem at a surface level. A lot of tools out there can do continuous delivery, if you will. But if you think about come from the lens of getting changes into production, think about all the endpoint locations, right? Banks, car washes, gas stations, kiosks, McDonald's kiosks, for example, right? Cars, even. I mean, cars are just moving computers now, right? So if you think about that, like the edge deployments, I mean, there's so much work left. And I think that's what excites me the most about our mission, 2030 mission, is because we're focused on winning the category by going deep and wide.
And how do you think that strategy differs from
Yeah.
other folks that you see out there?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we want to go deep and wide. I truly believe other vendors are just focused on being an inch deep, but a mile wide,
Right.
right? They're building a lot of other tools or other services and product offerings to complement their solution to be the true one in all in one DevOps solution.
Right.
But I think our best of breed approach and focus on continuous delivery is going to be the key differentiator for us. The way I look at it is we're doing a vertical play here, right? And our maniacal focus on getting changes into production is really what's going to set us apart from others.
Yeah, I definitely my thinking definitely aligns with that because I like to use the best tool for the job. That's the way I like to think of it. And so these tools that do everything, they tend to do nothing well. They tend to do just
That's
a
right.
lot of other stuff, but they don't do that one thing that you care about really well. And I guess that speaks to our mission here at Octopus.
And we've seen this, right? Many times, John. I mean, we're the same age. You might have remembered IBM stitching together like 6 different technologies, right, into Rational Team Concert, right? And HP, with their Mercury acquisition with Quality Center, they tried to create an ALM platform. PTC as well. It doesn't work. It didn't work in the 2010s, 2010s. It's not going to work now.
And do you see any market shifts at the moment that you think that it's going to adjust on customer behaviors? Do you think those are going to align to what we are all about here at Octopus?
I think so. There's two big trends I've noticed. A lot of large organizations have built homegrown tools, and they're slowly outgrowing those tools that they've built in-house, either from a governance or compliance perspective or security. And the reason for that is because those homegrown tools were built for a particular tech stack. Now with AI, you are now dealing with not thousands of applications, but hundreds of thousands of applications and microservices. So those homegrown tools simply just can't keep up. The other shift I've noticed is, the whole shift left movement, but also CI tools extending into CD. And that just doesn't scale for a lot of enterprise customers. We're in talks with so many prospects as we speak who have tried that, have tried to extend CI to do complex continuous delivery at scale, and it just doesn't work. This further amplifies that we're on the right strategy in building a vertical continuous delivery platform.
Yeah, when I think of these DIY solutions, I typically think of these scripts that people will write, and the vision
Mhm.
of things like the Homer from The Simpsons, where Homer decides to design his own car, and it just ends up looking
That's
like
right.
this thing that no one wants to end up buying or something like that. So this is kind of what
Yeah.
life can be like when you're doing your own scripts, etc. So interesting stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're of the same
I
age, as you
love
rightly
it.
point out. The Simpsons are a cultural
Yes.
touchstone.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In terms of that though, but like if we think about the industry as a whole, obviously different vendors have different strengths, and I would say that we have a
Yes.
competitive edge around some of the things that we're doing around deployments, continuous delivery, platform engineering, DevOps, etc. Do you think there's one competitive edge, or maybe there's more that you think that a lot of others might underestimate of Octopus?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think to double click on that, I think our biggest competitive advantage is because we've been focused on continuous delivery and deployments and getting changes into production for 13 plus years. This has given us a wealth of knowledge around data associated with CD. You might have heard the saying that data is the new oil. We are the data stewards, right? And we have so much telemetry on thousands of customers and them doing hundreds to thousands of deployments a day. We've seen the pattern. We've seen the pattern of how you deploy to Kubernetes, Windows, Linux, AWS Lambda functions, right? Serverless. So we have seen the shape of the data, how organizations are deploying. And because of that, now our focus on applying that to AI, or bringing AI and embedding that within Octopus, we're focused on solving real life use cases. The four ones that we're going to start off with are deployment failure analyzer, tier zero support, best practices advisor, and prompt based project creation. And it's because we have data. We know what are the problems organizations face. We're focusing on real life use cases that are going to bring value day one, not just sprinkling AI into Octopus for the sake of AI.
Let's shift gears now and talk a little bit about the team structure that you own. Obviously, this is part of the organization here at Octopus. You're the chief revenue
Yeah.
officer. Tell us a little bit about your team.
Yeah. So the nickname of our revenue org is called the Incredible Eight. It's a play on words of the new Fantastic Four movie, right? But just Incredible Eight. And the reason for that is because there's eight distinct roles or groups within my org that report into me. We've got the BDRs, where here at Octopus we call associate AEs, right? They're responsible for pipeline generation and business development. We've got the account executives. We have the account managers responsible for our renewal business, solutions engineers, customer success managers, technical account managers, which are post sales, technical advisors. I have the support organization as well as the operations. So those are eight distinct roles. And the way we work is actually guided by an internal framework we've built called the buyer and the customer journey.
Okay.
And what that does is it dissects and looks at the entire journey, all the way from the first time the customer is made aware of our solution to the time that they try our solution, they get into a POV with us, they purchase the solution, they get it deployed, and then they renew and then become a case study. So these eight roles fit nicely into both the buyer and the customer journey.
Sounds like there's a lot of trust there. How do you make that when there's how do you instill that trust when there's obviously an environment with a lot of fast moving parts and
Mhm.
ambiguous sort of parts to it as well?
Yeah, wherever possible, I lead by example,
Okay.
and I also tell my leaders to lead by example. I never ask my team to do something that I'm not willing to do myself. I tell my team to bring me in at any stage of the customer journey. I shamefully will admit we're 7 months into 2025. I've already logged 103,000 miles on
Oh,
an airplane. And I think I'll probably finish the year closer to 170, 180.
wow, that's a lot. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I've sat at the back of a plane for many flights. I can't imagine doing that many miles. That was insane. What's your status right now? Are you super duper elite?
Yeah, like Super League with Air Canada, where you get the concierge, and it does come in handy, especially during delays or some other issues. Like I remember had a connection in Frankfurt.
Yep.
I missed it, and then at the gate, the concierge was waiting for me with my new boarding pass for the next
Oh,
flight. So,
there you go. Treating you like an adult and a human. That's the way that you
yes,
want. Kind of like the way we do
that's
things at
right.
Octopus, right? So we're
Yes.
your concierge for CD, I guess, is another way of saying it. So let's shift a little bit of gears around company culture. Obviously, this is something that you care a great deal about. I wanted you to describe to me kind of like when you think of what makes Octopus team in revenue different from other companies. What is it about your team in particular that I think sets you apart?
I've had the luxury, as you saw with my career journey, I've had the luxury of working for six different revenue organizations,
Yep.
meaning six different CROs. So I've seen the good, the bad, the ugly. And what I've done is I've tried to amplify the good. And so I would say that our culture is more the Australian nice, if you will, and not cutthroat like some other ones, where, for example, if you don't perform for 2 quarters, you're put on an automatic PIP, and then 30 to 60 days later, you're exited from the business. That's not treating people like humans. It's not treating people like adults. You have to give people room to stand, to learn, and support them, right? And we do that. We provide a lot of resources. To me, there's a give get mentality. I tell individuals that come into my organization, you control your own destiny, and I want you to have an individual CEO mentality. And I actually learned that during my time at Texas Instruments. We were a business unit focused organization. And I remember my VP of sales, he would ask me, how is Harsh Incorporated doing? I'm like, what do you mean? What's Harsh Incorporated? I didn't recognize that incorporated. And he said, well, no, like, how are you managing your business? How's your business going, right? What's your P&L? Like, how do you spend your time? How is your customers, right? What's your churn rate? So that individual CEO mentality, I think serves us really well, especially when we're trying to grow fast and scale.
Yeah. That's awesome. I always like to wrap up with a little bit of rapid fire here. So, to that end, let's go ahead and
Yeah.
get into it. We've got a bunch of questions here. Feel free to answer these as quickly as you'd like. So, first question: first thing you
Sure.
do when you start your workday?
I make a list. I do a daily stand up with my chief of staff Hope, on the most important thing that we have to get done for the day and what are the things that I need to do for the day.
Awesome. The most used app on your phone, excluding email and Slack?
Ooh, the most used
Angry
app.
Birds.
No, actually, I would say it's probably the Score app.
Ah,
I follow baseball, right?
oh
Hockey
yeah.
and fantasy football. So
Yep.
yeah, the
Go Blue
Score app.
Jays. There you go. The most
Yes.
memorable moment at Octopus so far for you?
I would say the first RKO we had in Barcelona.
Yeah.
I spoke to Paul, and Paul said we have never done an RKO, so it felt really nice to be the first revenue leader to actually get the entire revenue organization together in one room.
That's awesome. Yeah, I was there. I was really impressed by it. What's the one thing
Yeah.
your team would roast you for?
Um, you know, they all know and they all tell me that I'm a really smart person, but there's some basic things that I just am tone deaf about or just don't understand, right? So I'm not going to get into all of them, but there's some cultural norms I just don't pick up, and I'm oblivious to them. So
Yeah.
yeah, just simple stuff like that.
If I can offer one, I love the Sabikhi score, which is this score rating
Oh
of
yeah,
your facial expressions. So for those who don't
yes,
know, Paul has also picked up on this. They're basically like, how is Harsh feeling today? And so he's got these
yeah,
images of him looking at the camera, which is great. If you weren't in
yeah.
tech, what would you be doing?
I would be an astrophysicist.
Oh,
I
interesting.
just
Tell me more.
I love looking at the sky. It just
Ah, cool.
fascinates me. It just absolutely fascinates me to think about when we're looking at the sky. we're looking into the past. And when you hear things like the astronomers just found another star system that might have four Earth-like planets in
Yeah.
its orbit because it's in the Goldilocks region, and it's 45 light years away.
Yes.
Now, if you think about it, oh, geez, that doesn't seem like a long time. It actually is a very long time away. So, and by the time we get there, who knows what those planets would be like.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of it as well. I was really excited when James Webb was launched, and
Yes.
so yeah, awesome stuff. So next question: what's your personal productivity cheat code?
Um, I maximize doing multiple things in a short period of time. So, like if I'm on the go, one of the things that I just don't do anymore is I don't type. I
Oh,
just don't type. I use voice dictation.
okay,
So if I'm responding to an email, responding to Slack, I'm on the go. I just talk on my phone and it dictates. And it's gotten so much better in the last 5 years. So.
what do you use for that? Dragon Speak, or that's the only one I know?
Each of the individual apps now, I guess underlying they use the Apple framework, I guess, but the speech to text is fantastic in the new phones. Yeah.
Awesome. All right, well that wraps it up for this quick the second edition of Life at Octopus. Harsh, thanks a lot for joining me. I really appreciate the time, and it was really great to learn a few things about you.
Excellent. Thank you for having me, John.